Today my guest is Fariz Namazli, lawyer at Assistance to Free Economy Public Union. Today we will discuss illegal constructions. How many illegal constructions are there in Baku at present? Is there any statistics about it? According to the report of the Real Estate State Registration Committee, there are over 400,000 illegal buildings in Baku. But according to the unofficial statistics, it is much more than that figure. In which part of Baku all these illegal buildings are constructed? There are such buildings in Bayıl settlement, Rohani district, and other places, mainly in the outskirts of Baku. So these are mainly built around the central districts of Baku, right? Yes, maybe near the underground stations, metro stations, near the oil lands. Are there more illegal constructions in state-owned lands or municipality lands? There's not an official report about it, but the total figure is that there are over 400,000 constructions, but there is not easy figure. What can you say about the state control of this situation, whereas such a great amount of illegal constructions have been built? The government doesn't unveil information about it. When the state agencies, for example, file a lawsuit to sue the citizens, they cite that these lands belong to them. So their main evidence is that earlier they allowed the internal displaced persons and refugees to settle in these areas, but later they say other citizens also settled in these areas. And what about the safety of the residents? How dangerous are these areas for them? You know, in these areas, the epidemiological situation is not controlled. Sometimes the wastes are not removed. The state agencies do not control these areas. I want to narrate a story, a funny story. I have a friend and he's an oil engineer. Someday a person approaches him and says that there's a gas smell in my house, and this specialist visits his house, and it became clear that this house is on a gas well. And by time this well began to produce, to export gas, and later the house was destroyed, pulled down. And where is the state control? Why did they allow to build such houses in such dangerous areas? Actually, there could not be permission to build such houses in such areas. The legislation bans to build such houses near, for example, oil wells, near the oil pipelines, gas pipelines. But unfortunately, most of the houses are built in these territories. The state agencies actually turn a blind eye to the construction of these houses. It is no secret that both in Baku or other regions of Azerbaijan, even in the beginning of the construction, the state agencies become aware of this construction. And who is liable for this? Actually, state agencies are liable for this. And why citizens are suffering from this? Unfortunately, the legislation deems this construction unanimously illegal, and illegal constructions should be definitely pulled down. The registration of these houses is problematic. There are over 2 million population in Baku, and there are over 400,000 illegal buildings in Baku. It seems half of the population live in these illegal buildings, and how right is it to deem these buildings illegal, whereas more than half of the population of Baku live in these illegal constructions? You know, during the purchase of houses with official documents, official fees that should be paid are very high, documentation fees, and in addition there is corruption. The citizens are obliged to pay more than the set prices, set fees in the legislation. Besides, the citizens don't know their rights, and while buying the illegal buildings, illegal houses, they don't require documents. But also, the lands are occupied here. Yes, the lands are also occupied here, but the citizens don't care for this, and maybe citizens are also somewhat guilty for this. But the main responsibility lies for the state agencies, because the state agencies should interfere in time and inform that this construction, this building, is illegal. And this corruption makes another market here. And what about the volume, the amount, the turnover of the money in this market? I mean, for example, there are over 400,000 buildings, and if each citizen pays for each building 1 or 2,000, let's say, Azeri manats, what should the figure be here? What can you say about these statistics? There's no exact number about it, but it's impossible to calculate to implement such a calculation. But there are, of course, millions of Azeri manats here. And is there corruption in fact? For example, a citizen buys an empty area, then decides to construct a building here, and at that time, before the beginning of construction, the state agencies interfere. They either require documents or require bribe. And when the citizen pays the bribe, pays illegal fee, the state agencies do not interfere. So let's say a citizen buys an empty area, constructs a building here, house here. Then the house is supplied with water, gas, road is built, and multiple state agencies see it and participate in this process. So there's a corruption action here. And how many state officials, government employees have been punished for this? I know that a few municipality employees have been punished for this. Usually not high-ranking, but lower-ranking employees are punished for this. Let's say in the framework of so-called anti-corruption fight, these employees are held. They don't solve the root of the problem. There are higher-ranking officials than municipality heads or municipality employees that they should be punished. Thank you for coming to our studio. Today our guest was Fariz Namazli, lawyer at Assistance to Free Economy Public Union.